Welcome back, everybody. In this episode, we'll be diving into the Daisy 1999 BE BullsEye Rifle, and I'm going to do my own little touch to this rifle. I just couldn't leave it alone. So this is going to be a breakdown and modification, and we'll just get started. The first thing that we have to do is go ahead and remove the nut from the opposing side of the receiver. Next, we'll go ahead and loosen the corresponding screws all around the receiver. There's 4 of them, with the 5th screw being tucked up under the front of the forestock. Starting with the removal of the band and the forestock, we'll move back down to the receiver and we'll go ahead and take apart all the existing hardware there. The next thing we'll do is remove the lower tube from the rest of the gun, and we'll just use the Ryobi rotary tool to do that. After removing the muzzle end of the barrel with a pipe cutter, we'll come down and we'll tap the shot tube assembly towards the receiver end and we'll remove it. And here we are with everything laid out for a good base that we could begin our build. To save on time for the video, I went ahead and finished the gun barrel body. To start off with, I went ahead and stripped it down, I sandblasted it. I've added the aluminum barrel extension onto it, and now the gun barrel body itself measures 37.5 inches in length. I've decided to keep the lower tube. I've tacked it in the underneath, and I've pop riveted it in the front for the aluminum tube extension. Next, we'll be finding ourselves getting down into the shot tube assembly. For getting into the BB feeder housing, the best method that I found is a 2-step method, and that's to start. You'll come up here to your studs on each side, and you'll start out with a 7/64 or smaller drill bit, and there'll be a dimple in the top, and you'll center that and you'll let it walk its way through, and then you'll come in after you've done each side with a 7/64, and you'll come in and you'll finish it up with a 1/8 inch drill bit, and you'll size it out for that 1/8 inch. And once that's done, we'll go ahead and file down some 1/8 inch rivets and make a flat spot on for each side. These rivets are what we'll be using to seal up each side of our BB feeder assembly whenever we're done installing our shot tube. Once you have your 2 holes drilled out on each side, you can split the case open by lifting up on the back of the abutment washer, and the whole piece pops up forward. Here we are with the top, the abutment seal itself, and separate the barrel. Since we're down inside the BB feeder assembly, figured I'd take some time to highlight a couple of little things. There's actually 3 stair steps within this valley that the air tube slides back and forth as it goes into the shot tube itself. And to show we're going to do a little relief here with a chainsaw file, and I'll show you where they start at. Here's a better look at the relief. inside the feeder housing. Here's your high spot, and here's your low, and here's for your barrel on up ahead. Coming over to the abutment seal itself on the inboard side, what I've noticed is this inner recess pit, point right here. It's just an empty void. When it's installed in the housing, there's quite a big air gap right here. And to remedy that, what we can do is we can install a little bitty O-ring. For getting everything put back together, what we'll do is we'll start with placing this shot tube back into the lower valley, and keep in mind our little stud sticking up has to line up with our hole to sit in place. So with that there, we'll go ahead and we'll take and we'll press this into the top. Once everything's put back together and pinched in place, you can install those special little pop rivets that you took care of earlier, and you can see why they're flat on the sides now, so it doesn't rub when it's getting installed into your barrel housing. Now that our BB feeder housing assembly is back to square one, it's time to move on to the next step. Moving along to the plunger assembly here, there's a few other things that we could do and change and swap out to really wake this thing up. First, we'll make note of this plunger head, and right out of the box what you'll find is that the front end, this plunger head sitting down into this body, it is awfully rocky. So one can only imagine whenever you pull the trigger that this thing's rocking one way or the other whenever it's trying to fire. One thing to make a quick note of is the plunger head and where it goes into the metal body. It has a lot of rock and to and fro play in it, and we're going to eliminate a bunch of that. But that's a whole lot of rocking going on. But we'll remedy that. So for dressing up the plunger assembly, to start off with the plunger head, we'll throw a few copper washers in place of the regular single metal washer. And then we'll come behind that with the clean sweep oil wiper seal. Then we're going to go with a Cobalt 327 spring. And then sticking out in front of it, I'm going to run this old blue hair steel air tube that I make. And I'll be getting it on the eBay store here shortly. I'm not sure how to deem it just yet, but we'll go into more detail in a later video about the old blue hair steel air tube. And with our parts swapped out, here's what we're left with. Now to just slide it together and move on. Coming over to the plastic trigger assembly, which for the BullsEye has this really nice red trigger. I went ahead and deleted the bear trap and spring off of it. And I put a little gold accent on each side of the lock mechanism. For the collar up here, I opted to use a smaller diameter rubber hose to stretch over the copper fitting. And it's working pretty good, I gotta say. Since the trigger works so good on it, and I'm not going to do anything on the inside, I'm just going to go through this little sight window right here and put a little drop of rim oil on it. And we'll get it worked down in there. Moving along to the shot tip, I've modified it in a couple of places. I've come into the bottom of it and I've opened up this crevice right here, because if you come up here to the tube, you'll see that I've reduced the inner diameter with another sleeve, and this will fit up in it, but it's all held in place with a pop rivet to keep it from going anywhere, and that's why this opening has to be here to slide over where that pop rivet's at. Another thing that you gotta do is you have to open up the top where the rail is for the sight. You gotta make it a little more open and higher. But once all this is done, what I've done is I've come up here to the top and I've took a file and I made a little flat plane on the tail end of where this opening stops, and whenever it's all fits together, it slides together pretty smoothly and sets in place. Not too bad. I do like the way the hoop lever fits into the BullsEye gun, but for this build I think I'm going to opt in for the old traditional Red Ryder steel lever, and we'll see where that can get us. To finish off the internal mods, we're going to go ahead and polish up the inner chamber walls with we're going to slap some acetone on a rag, and then we're going to do WD-40 to finish it up. Prior to the reinstallation of our new assembly here, we need to go through and we need to re-grease and lubricate our oil felt seal. The advantage of the oil wiper seal is it can hold a lot of lubricant. Its soft felt sides really make good for keeping contact up against the chamber wall, for keeping it nice and polished and clean and shiny. For all the other contact points, I like to really stick with some moly and graphite grease. It's really good stuff. I picked up on it years ago in the coal mines. It's got really good impact resistance, and it's really good against pressures. With our contact points greased and sealed all the way around our BB feeder assembly, we're now ready for the reinstall. Now that we've got our main gun body back together, it's looking awfully good. But it sure looks awfully naked. So let's dress things up a little bit with some custom cut decals. Once we get our decals applied, then we'll have ourselves a little grand reveal. So here we are with our reveal, everybody. Before I pull the cover, I'd just like to say that I may have got a little carried away with the accents, but I really like the way it turned out. And there's no mistaking that it's my own. with it all said and done, there's just one key detail missing from advancing this video any further, really, and that's no scope. So far with all my custom long gun builds, I've given them all catchy names, but for some reason I'm drawn to this one with the bullseye, and I feel like El Diablo is a pretty fitting name for this rifle. Will it breathe fire, or will it puff smoke? Well, we're going to find out in a part 3 episode. We'll run some crony numbers and get a scope fitted to see just how far we'll send these BBs down the range. If you enjoyed this or any of my other builds in the past, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Tell us how y'all feel. Until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in, and don't forget that part 3 coming. Later.